Hi guys and welcome to today's episode. Thank you for joining me again here on the work.knits YouTube channel. My name is Lauren, I'm coming to you from England in the United Kingdom and I've got lots of knitting to share today. We've got a slightly different setup, we're in a slightly different location and I've also got a slightly different tech setup, so please excuse if we kind of play around with these bits over the coming days and weeks. Another slight apology because my voice is going a bit today, so I've got some water on hand, but hopefully it won't kind of disrupt the video too much. And yeah, I've just been really excited to talk to you all about some knitting. It's been a busy week. I can imagine lots of you have had some fun things on, maybe some slightly more tiring things on, but hopefully everyone has found time for knitting or making or crafting, whatever your hobby is and whatever brings you joy. So today I thought we'd jump straight into some finished objects, works in progress, future knitting plans, although probably not very much on the latter. My finished object today is not quite in the state that I wanted it to be in. I'll explain why now, but my finished object is the Gallant Sweater by Caidree. This is the Mohair Edition, but I have not knit it in mohair. And the reason this isn't quite in the state I wanted it to, all the ends are woven in until I've needed to add an inch onto the bottom. So, jumping straight in, why have I needed to add an inch onto the bottom? I have knit this up in Wee County Yarns Kincross 4-ply. First time I've used the yarn, I bought it when I was at Wonderful Wales. I didn't really swatch for this. I cast on the neckline, and I think I mentioned in the last episode that I needed to go in and rip that back and change to a larger needle size because I wasn't quite on gauge. But I knew I didn't want to knit the sweater in mohair, I wanted to knit it in a kind of 2-ply jumper weight yarn of some sorts, and I had 4 skeins of Wee County Yarns Kincross 4-ply in the colourway Quartz. So I knit this exactly to pattern, apart from changing my needle size, but I have followed absolutely all of the instructions to the letter, and then I wove in all the ends, washed it, blocked it, let it dry, and it was dry yesterday, if not the day before, Friday, and I thought, oh, I'll get some pictures of it. And in the process of washing it, Wee County Yarns Kincross 4-ply is quite, I was trying to describe it in the last episode what it's like to knit with. It's quite a contained yarn. What I mean by that is it's not quite crisp, but it's just kind of got, it's round but not in a plump way. It's in like a kind of very slicked down kind of way, and you know that there's some spinning oil in it. So I knew this would bloom, but what I wasn't sure, because you know, until you've washed, and this is where swatching and washing my swatch would have been a good idea, but until you've washed it and blocked it, you just don't know whether that's going to bloom in the sense that the garment's going to grow. You don't know whether it's going to bloom in the sense that the stitches will fill out and puff up. You just don't know how it's going to react. So having knit it exactly to pattern, I think the body is a nice cropped body in the pattern, but it's the perfect amount of crop. And what happened when I blocked this was the fabric bloomed, which was beautiful. I don't know how well that's going to show up. But the garment grew widthways, and in doing so shortened. And so this was about an inch, just about an inch too short. So what I've done is, you can probably see the stitch marker just here, I have gone in and added about an inch or so and redone the I-cord on the edge. If I can get close enough to the camera, you might be able to see the difference in the fabric between the blocked and unblocked there. So this from here is unblocked, and then above that is blocked. So I have literally, just before jumping on here, just finished redoing that I-cord, so I've got some ends to weave in from that. I also was knitting on this in a cafe this morning and have spilt a couple of drops of coffee on it, so it's going to need a full block. So it's a finished object, but just with the last couple of ends to weave in and a wash and a block needed. But in summary, absolutely love this sweater. I've knit this in just over a week, and I did the majority of the knitting. Majority of the knitting was done by the last episode. I think I just had the sleeves to do, and those went really, really quickly. It's just been this modification that has meant that, you know, it's continued to take up some time. But a sweater in under 2 weeks is amazing, and I would knit the pattern again. I'm going to make plans for another one. It's beautifully drapey. As you can probably see, the light's coming through it beautifully. It's just really simple, classic shape. The fabric is beautiful. This is the first time I've knit up in anything in the Wee County Kincross, and I have loved it. It creates the softest, most beautiful fabric. So all in all, I think a big success, and I think now having just I added 2 inches extra onto the bottom, or somewhere between 1 inch and 2 inches, knowing that it's going to shrink upwards slightly. So hopefully that's going to then be spot on what I wanted. So that is my first finished object. I was chatting in the comments with some other people who have made the Gallant Sweater Mohair editions and maybe done them in mohair or not in mohair. It was so lovely to hear about other people knitting them, how much they like them. So I'm just really pleased that, you know, what I perceive to be the kind of benefits of the pattern are being enjoyed by other people too. So I think that's a really, really good sign. So yes, first and only finished object this week is my Gallant Sweater, and as I said, apologies that I haven't got it on. I don't think I'll be able to block it and get it to dry in time to insert a picture here, but do look out for a picture of the finished object, probably with some work trousers, etc., on my Instagram and on my Ko-fi feed, if you're interested in how this looks on the body. So I'm going to put that to one side. That's finished object number 1 done. And now we're going into whips, I think. Now, I've been talking over the last couple of weeks about approach to whips and just casting on what's giving me joy at the moment, and I have been chatting with all of you about it in the comments, and oh, I wish we could chat about it in person. But I've just really been sticking to this ethos of cast on what's bringing me joy. It's an absolute privilege to be able to do that and to have a stash that I can kind of shop. In order to do that, my stash isn't huge. For those of you who followed along will know, you know, it's pretty contained. I don't have like a whole wall of yarn, but I'm very lucky for the stash that I do have, and I've really been enjoying shopping it and casting on things that have been on my mind for a really long time. So the first thing I'm going to cover today is a whip that actually you guys have seen a lot. I won't talk about it too much because I said in my last episode I'd review it properly when it's all done, and it's getting there. It's just the only reason it's slow is just because it's really hard on my wrists, and that is my Tresko / doodle sweater. So I won't bore you because I know some of you have been hearing about this quite literally for months now, but the key thing is I was working on the bottom rib earlier, or like the other week when I spoke to you guys, and that first bottom rib panel is now done, so I just need to replicate that on the other side as a split hem and do the last cuff. So I will hopefully make progress on that over the next week or so. I doubt it's going to be finished by the next episode. I really hurt my wrist getting that bottom rib done, so let's just see, but some progress on that, pretty slow going. The other things I've had progress on this week, really quite nice bit of progress, sorry needles all over the place, clank clank. Another really nice bit of progress on, I'm going to turn this the right way around. I knit all my stuff inside out, which I think I've mentioned on the podcast before. I just find that's easier on my wrists, but it doesn't make it that easy to show you. So here we go. I am working on a sock. I'll bring it a bit closer so you can see. There we go. So I'm working this on little tiny 9-inch circulars, 2.5mm needles, and I am just doodling this sock based on this kind of flea stitch motif that I have been loving in the past couple of months. I have done something a bit funky with the heel on this one. I was working the heel without access to a pattern in front of me, and I can never remember how to do a heel flap and turn. I can remember the heel flap part, I can remember the picking up stitches for the gusset, but the turn always gets me. And I did the turn, and instead of knitting 2 together on each of the turns, I just turned. So my heel, the bottom of the heel is quite poofy and big. Now, it could be this actually ends up fitting really, really well. I don't know, but I'm leaving it how it is for now. We'll see how well it fits. If it doesn't fit very well, then I don't really know what I'll do with this one-off sock. If it fits well, I'll make the other one to look exactly the same. But yes, kind of interesting. I mean, it looks like it should fit quite well. So maybe my accident will be a happy accident. Let's just see. But yeah, I've done about 10 to 15 rounds of 1x1 rib, a very short ankle, a heel flap. On the gusset, the flea stitch has turned into kind of diagonal twisting stripes, which I think is gorgeous. Then I've done a kind of bar on the underside of the foot to then reset into flea stitch again at the end of the gusset. The other thing about doing the heel flap like this, where you don't decrease stitches on the turns, is you end up with your full, how best to describe this, so normally doing a heel flap and gusset construction, you end up with less stitches on the underside of your sock than you do on the upper side of your sock, if I'm making any sense. No, that's not making sense. How best to word this? So I keep markers in place either side of the heel flap. I then, to mark the front and the top of the foot, and then you do your heel flap and turn, you pick up for your gusset, and I tend to put extra markers in for the bottom of the heel flap and turn, so that I then know I'm decreasing in between those two markers, if this makes any sense. And I normally think those two markers should come together, but they don't, because you've decreased the number of stitches on the bottom of the foot. Doing it this way, you've kept exactly the same number of stitches, because you haven't got rid of any, and then you obviously add stitches when you pick up for the gusset. So what's really interesting is it makes your gusset section of your sock really long. Is essentially what I'm trying to get to. So my gusset section is all the way from here to here, whereas on some socks it's kind of like this, so it's about double. So all the maths works out, like it's really obvious when you think about it, but I had not really thought about it that way, and I was like, gosh, I'm doing decrease for the gusset for a really long time. But anyway, I think it might fit quite well, so let's see. In terms of the yarn I'm using John Arbon Textiles Exmoor sock base. The ball bands are in the centre of the cakes. I've divided the cakes into two, so I've got 50 grams of each sock yarn. I'm divided it into two so that I know I'm kind of going to make a pair, and the ball bands are right in the centre of the other balls, so I don't have them to hand, so I can't give you colourway names at the moment, but it's a beautiful kind of aqua turquoise colour, and then this lovely kind of smoky blue is the best way I can describe it. It's not quite a navy, it's kind of a smoky dark blue. The John Arbon sock is really special because it's got Zwartel in it, as well as Exmoor fleece, and I think they got something like a bit of blue fleece, less bit of BFL in there, I don't know. But I'll have to have a look when I have finished the sock and done the other pair, and I'll give you a full review. But I'm really enjoying using this sock yarn because it's got that kind of feel of a rustic yarn, and yet you know it's going to hold up. It's excellent for colour work, got really nice stickiness to it. And yeah, it's just creating a fabric that I think will be really, really nice on my feet. So very, very excited about these. So I think the last episode I got to maybe like here on the leg and the cuff. So I've knit all of the rest of this section. So that's some good progress this week. A lot of info there on just a singular sock, but hey, hopefully you guys like the details. Right, and then this is where it starts to get exciting because these are some projects that you guys have not seen yet. And I've been kind of starting stuff, putting it down for a bit, whatever. There are a few whips that maybe you guys are expecting to see and expecting to see progress on, and there isn't. So one of those is my Recollect Cowl by Jennifer Steingass, aka Knit Love Wool. I absolutely love that cowl. The only reason I haven't been working on it is I've been doing quite a lot of knitting with other people around, and so I've needed stuff that I can kind of talk and be looking up and not looking down at my knitting, and that cowl needs me to be focused on a chart. I don't need to be looking at the chart the whole way round, but it is colourwork knitting and I'm not good enough to be kind of looking up and around whilst I'm colourwork knitting. So I haven't made very much progress on that at all. I don't even think I've picked that up since the last podcast episode. The Keren Wrap, the kind of Mohair Intarsia wrap, I absolutely love it. It's sat on the shelf, like I can see it, it's just in front of me. And the reason there's no progress on that is, in the process of this move, I don't know where the kind of cranberry coloured Shalana mohair has gone that I'm going to progress to within the shawl, and so I really don't want to put any like serious work into that until I know where that is, because then I can just flow through, and from a kind of design point of view I can really then control where that comes in, that colour gets introduced. Whereas at the moment, because I don't know where it is, it'd be really tempting to just keep knitting and then reach a point where just suddenly I introduce that colour, which is not really what I want. So anyway, so that's why that's on pause. There was a couple of other whips, including like a big grey shawl that I was knitting with a really cool texture on it. I haven't lost mojo for that, it's just not with me at the current, you know, where we're currently based. We've kind of moved in several different parts, so I'll pick that back up when I can get my hands on it. So in the meantime, I've started a few exciting projects. So I'll show you the one with like the least progress first, but for long-term viewers of the podcast, you'll know that I've kind of made several things over the last like year or so that I've been saying, oh, I'll release that as a pattern. And then there's not really been any news from me on that. So one of the kind of earliest one of those is the Keren Wrap, which was a wrap that I designed for my mum for a significant birthday this year, and it's a kind of geometric modular knit wrap with a couple of like mosaic elements. But yes, anyway, I think at the time I asked if anyone would be interested in test knitting, and I think people's views were it's a lot of knitting. It's DK weight on 3.5mm needles, so completely understood that people felt that was a bit too much knitting at the time. I think what I'm going to do is just knit myself a second version, because I've given the original version to my mum. But I'm going to knit myself another version, and then I will treat that as the kind of informal test knit, and then I will just release the pattern, as with a few of my other patterns, release it at a kind of discounted rate, because like a permanently discounted rate, because my patterns are not some of them are not test knitted, and lots, you know, most of them aren't tech edited or anything. So that's the Keren Wrap. So I started casting on my version, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but this camera is beautifully picking up the elements of grey in this yarn. So the yarn I'm using is Marina Skua's DK base. I would need to pick up the label. Actually, I think I've got one here. So it's her Mendip DK, and she recommends 3.25 to 4mm needles. I'm knitting this on 3.5. It's 120 meters per 50 grams. And this is just like her kind of natural base, which is kind of a crew colour, but it's got, as the camera's picking up really well, it's got kind of like grey, a very light grey in it as well, which is beautiful. So I'm currently working on the kind of middle section, which is where you start, the kind of centre panel. I took the needle back off this because I needed it for something else, but kind of making a start was the main thing. And then in terms of what I'm going to pair this colour with for the rest of the wrap, so the main colour will be this kind of natural colour. I'm then also using another skein of Marina Skua's Mendip DK. This one is called Cowl. I'll be using that. Also some, and this is massively blowing out on camera, this is much, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that to show as a true colour, but it's kind of like a burnt orange, it's got like some reds in it, it's quite marmalade-y. This has got alpaca in it. I have no idea what brand it is. I've had it in my stash for years, lost the ball band ages ago, but I'm going to use some of that. I'm also going to use some Cocon, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, mohair chunky yarn, 78% mohair, 13% wool, 9% nylon, in the colourway Moon. These tiny minis, I've got 2 of those I'm going to incorporate as modular stripes. And then I'm also going to use a little bit of my, again from Stash, Biche and Bouche Le Gros Silk mohair in the colourway Noir, 448, so that's like a very thick mohair for those that are not familiar. So that's kind of my plan. I want like a kind of monochrome with orange as the contrast colour. So I'm really, really excited. I think it's going to look beautiful. So I'm hoping to knit that up over the next couple of months and then release the pattern probably in like September. So that's been very exciting to get that started. Just going to put that down there. Another, the next kind of 2 things I've been working on have been things that have been on my mind for a really, really long time. So I have had this vision for an Intarsia Cables Cowl. And this is going to be an absolute nightmare to show, I have no doubt, because this has got like a million things coming off it. Can you see? Oh my gosh, nightmare. I'm going to have to find, yeah, here we go. So that's the join at the beginning. I don't know how well this is going to show up, but this is being knit on 3.75mm needles, knit flat. You start off with a kind of stockinette folded hem, and then you portion out your contrast colour into a number of different segments that you can then wind around some card or something as like a kind of bobbin for Intarsia. The main colour that I'm using as the background colour is Wool Dreamers Saona on the Ozetta colour base, and that yarn is beautiful. I picked that up when I was in Retrosaria Rosa Pomar in Lisbon. I picked up just one ball of it, 50 grams. So I will just keep working the cowl backwards and forwards with the Intarsia cables, but that has been just like on my mind for so long, so that's so lovely to get that started. I'm sorry it was such a brief show, but it's really difficult to show at the current stage it is at. And the contrast colour is a stash kind of leftover of Uschitita yarn. I have no idea what the colourway is called. I was gifted that leftover from someone else who'd done a project. And that was a very, very long time ago. So yeah, I have no idea what the colour is, but it's beautiful. It's like a golden yellow. So the kind of contrast of the very, very soft but more woolly Saona base from Wool Dreamers with the kind of silky Uschitita yarn is lovely. So that's another whip, and then my final whip to show you is another one that I'm super excited about and has been on my mind since I went to go and visit the John Arbon. In fact, the design has been on my mind since way before then. I even have started, oh that's really funny, do you know what, I'm going to lean over the camera for a minute and grab something because I'll show you the origins of this design. So, way back when I had this idea for a shawl that's got a central panel that's cabled and then really, really long kind of crescent shape. Now for obvious reasons you can see why I have not continued with this. So I love this central cabled, I think the light behind me slash, it's just a bit tricky to show you, but there we go. So it's got like a really dark coloured central cable which took so long. That is knit up in a colourway called Jolene from Positive Ease yarn, potentially. Beautiful colour of green, love it. And then this is Holst Garn in the colourway Nougat, but this just, I wanted it long, but this is just too long. And it gets too thin for too long. Anyway, so I need to frog this. I might keep the middle panel and do something else off the side of it. But I just had this vision for a kind of semi-crescent shape shawl, or basically just not a triangular shawl, with this cabled panel down the middle. And then when I went to the John Arbon mill in South Molton in England and picked up some yarn, I just thought I'm going to have another stab at it. So guys, this is where we're up to. I don't know how well you're able to see this. Haha. I will give some fuller details when this is a bit further progressed. I have a feeling I might have even got this done ahead of the next episode. This will be a design that I will release a pattern for. I have no idea what the name's going to be yet, but essentially you knit a section of a cable going vertically down. You then pivot your work and pick up along the long side, and then I am working decreases to form half of the shawl going out sideways. In terms of what I'm knitting this up in, this central panel is in one of John Arbon's Appledore colourways. I will give you a full breakdown of what that base entails later on, and colourway names, etc. But it's just gorgeous, and the blend of colour is just stunning. If it gets rid of my face, there we go. And then the bit coming off is in their Pure Elements DK, which I think was a limited edition yarn in 2022, so it maybe I need to knit up another version in a non-limited edition base so it's a bit more accessible for people. But I'm absolutely loving this. You've got the kind of immediate interest of getting this kind of short piece of cable knitting done, and then you're into something that's much more kind of potato chippy, social, and then it will have a really nice finish on it. So I'm hoping to have this done fairly soon, but that was a super exciting cast on. Again, just to see that vision coming to life is just so exciting. So I'm reluctant to say that's all the knitting this week, because I feel like that's quite a lot. But yeah, it's been a very knitty week. It's been very lovely. I've been cramming that around new job. Thank you all for your well wishes with that. So this has definitely been kind of, I've been getting home in the evening and I've just not had the energy to do anything else. I've been getting home quite late, at about kind of gone 8 o'clock at night, and I've just been coming back, getting changed into something comfy and just flopping and knitting until I go to sleep, and then been doing some knitting on the train in the morning when it's quite early and I just don't have the headspace yet to start work. So yes, it's been a very knitty week. Very excited to start having some of these designs actually on the needles. I will probably give more details in the next episode, when hopefully I have at least some of those designs in a position where I could start sending patterns out to test knitters. The ones I really want to get out to test knitters are the cabled collar that I finished earlier this year. I need to make some adjustments to how I'm doing the whole neckline, but really keen to get that out there. I'd be very keen to get this to a point where I could send it out to test knitters, even if that's just to, even if I've only knitted half, that should be enough to get the pattern out there. The cowl with the Intarsia cables, I'd also be quite keen to get going on. So I've got maybe about 4 patterns that I'd really like to be in testing over August, and then with an aim to kind of release them in September/October time. So it's very exciting, guys. Very exciting. One thing I did want to mention today that I think is very exciting, along with all these projects that I'm trying to whip up into patterns and just my knitting fever at the moment, another exciting thing that I would like to embark on is a 1,000 subscriber giveaway. I have had many people join the channel recently, which is so exciting, and I wanted to take another opportunity to give back to all of you for your support, for your time, for the lovely conversations we have in the chats. So as well as my alternate episode giveaway that I'm running, where every other episode I pull a winner from someone who has subscribed and commented on the previous episode, and I gift them one of my patterns, one of my designs, either via Ravelry or as a PDF to their email address as an example. So as well as that giveaway, I'd like to run a 1,000 subscriber giveaway, and it's going to be very simple entry instructions. Please subscribe to the channel and let someone else know about the channel who you think would really enjoy coming to sit and chat about knitting with me. So you can do that either by tagging them in a comment on Instagram, it could be sending them a link to this channel, it could be tagging them in a comment on one of the videos, however you want to tell them about it. And when I draw a winner, you'll just need to send me a screenshot of the way in which you've promoted the podcast to that individual. So I hope those entry requirements are quite simple and easy to follow. And in terms of what the giveaway will compose, a bit like the giveaway that I ran previously for 500 subscribers, I'm really keen that the prize suits whichever individual wins the giveaway. And so the plan will be to basically chat to them when they win, and talk to them about what their preferences are in terms of yarn bases, in terms of yarn weight, in terms of the kind of colour palettes, all of that, and I will then bring a prize together based on their preferences. Now the idea will be to give at least 2 full 100 gram skeins of their choice of weight and kind of colourway. I will try and also include at least a skein or a mini, whatever's best I can find, of some local British yarns to share with the winner. And I will then also include some other little goodies, again based on preferences, which are a bit more to be decided. I think, given it's 1,000 subscribers, I think we should also have a second winner. So there will also be the equivalent of kind of like a sock set's worth of yarn for a second winner, again based on their preferences, and both winners will be able to choose any of the patterns in my library to accompany their giveaway prize. So that is what I'm thinking about. We might expand what the giveaway includes closer to the time if, for example, I see something when I'm out and about that I think would be particularly lovely to include, but that's the kind of general gist of what will be included, and I hope that's helpful. So I've been very excited to talk to you all about that. So that will be launching as of today, going forwards until we hit 1,000 subscribers, and there will be 2 winners, a main winner and a second winner who will receive kind of the equivalent of a sock set, so a 100-gram skein and some form of mini. And I think that's really it from me. Like, there's no huge life updates from this week. As I said, I've just been focusing on getting stuck into new job and trying to get as much knitting done as possible as a kind of outlet, really. And I've just been looking forward to jumping on here with you guys and having a chat about it all. So I hope this has been an enjoyable episode for you, and it's probably been quite a pacey update, but nonetheless an update on everything I've been up to. And I will look forward to speaking to you again next week, I think, where hopefully there might be a little bit more to chat about at kind of a slightly more in-depth level. But with that, I will leave you for now. Have a fantastic week. Happy knitting. Speak to you very soon. Bye for now.